Just guys, tell me in the comments if the mic's not working, because I've got no way of checking that. So can someone let me know in the comments if you can hear me properly and if the sound's good? Anyway, until that happens. Okay, thanks, Radislav. Okay, cool. I'm going to get straight into the questions. I appreciate you guys being here. Don't want to waste too much of your time. Thanks, mate. Language nerds. Yes, cool. All right. I'm not going to read out the comments. If I don't see comments, it's because I've got the questions on the right, on the left side of my screen. And I'm not going to be looking over at the comments. So let's get into it. And I will, if we've got time, I will look at the comments that you guys have asked as well. But first up are the comments that people have asked me, the questions that people have asked me. Okay, so Astral, someone says, a question about iTalki. Do you think it's better to simply use it as an option to speak in your target language, or to use it as a tutoring service for learning in a more structured way? I am curious, as I have textbooks here in Australia, but they may not have them in the target country, so I'm not sure how to go about it. Okay, so I'm assuming you're doing some kind of course in your target language. Like if you're talking about textbooks, I'm assuming you're going through school or university or some kind of paid program, in which case you're going to need the textbooks. In that case, I would say that it's better just to hire a tutor just to talk to. And actually, I would probably say that most of the time that's the case anyway, unless you've got an extremely large amount of money. It's just not feasible for most people to spend enough on tutors to like have the tutor take them through a course. So that's basically how I would do that. If you are going to have a tutor take you through something or set some kind of work for you, it generally works if the tutor kind of has some system that they use. So what's that service called? It's one of the Ling ones, the many Ling ones, Lingo Dear? No, something. The one where you go in and take like predetermined courses by the teachers. They advertise it all the time with YouTube sponsorships and whatever. On that one, interference with the audio. Okay, let me know if that gets bad. Hopefully. Okay, I'll try moving the mic back. So there's interference with the audio apparently. I think it might just be peaking. Okay, hopefully that makes it a little bit better. Yeah, so what was I saying? So if you take like the three services that I know of, which is that Ling one, I can't remember the name of, Verbling or iTalki. iTalki's going to be the only one that you can afford like lots and lots of lessons on. Verbling is probably too expensive for that, unless you just happen to find a really cheap teacher. And that third one, they're like sort of specific things. Like you can go in and say, let's do a course in Spanish about climate change or whatever it is. That one has a limited number of languages. They don't have stuff like Danish and Norwegian and whatever. So I would probably avoid trying to use tutors to take you through sort of set coursework. If you are doing a course in Australia, like a university course where you're going to take a speaking exam, if you're talking a lot on iTalki, if you're using maybe having 2 lessons a week, which is not a lot, but it'll be more than your other students. If you're doing that regularly and you're improving in your speech, when you go into the speaking exam, you'll be so much better prepared than your classmates, whoever they are, unless they're like native speakers and they haven't told someone. So I think you'll be fine just using just using iTalki or whatever as a service to chat to people, basically, where you have to speak in the target language and the tutor sort of has to sit there and try and correct some of your mistakes and whatever. Okay, I'm glad you guys can understand me. I did get a bit of that when I tested it earlier today, but I thought it was just peaking, so hopefully the mic is okay. Whatever the case, I'm fairly sure it's better than last time when I just used the webcam mic and it sounded awful. So it's a really tricky to set up using the proper mic, actually, which is not a proper mic, by the way. It's just a camera mic, so that's probably why it's not going too well. I'll get a proper mic one day. Okay, I can't remember who this was, and I haven't written it down. Someone asked about finding subtitles. They said, oh, yeah, actually, I got a few questions of this variety, so I'm just going to clump them all into one. Finding subtitles in the target language. This person was specifically asking about English subtitles for Swedish material, and the service they referred to was Swedish TV, what's it called? SVT Play, which is a Swedish service, so they don't have English subtitles. Okay, so firstly, I'm assuming you've tried opensubtitles.org. There's a copyright issue with it in Australia, at least, and probably some other Western countries, and so it's sort of blocked for the time being, but let's just say there's ways to get around it. Otherwise, don't waste too much time looking for subtitles. Instead, just move to an easier show that you might be able to get the gist of without subtitles, and then watch it like as a study session and use whatever system you normally use to take note of things. Like I use Anki. I finally switched to Anki after a couple of years of not doing it. But you know, you'll hear like words and go, oh, what was that? And you'll figure out that it must be something to do with. Don't worry, don't spend too much of your time looking for English subtitles, because that's something you want to move past as quickly as possible anyway. So if you're spending a lot of time just looking for that, then you're like putting a hurdle in the way of the first hurdle. So you're not even getting to the hurdle that you want to get over. The other thing is, yeah, if you can't find English subtitles, you'll just have to push through that discomfort that you have at not understanding everything. Or use Swedish subtitles to just build up your comprehension. Now, Swedish subtitles, it's the same with English subtitles actually, or target language subtitles. They're not the same as what they actually say. They're normally much shorter, but it still at least helps you see what's going on, because there's like big words that words that you don't understand that you can go, okay, they must be talking about that. It feels slow when you do it, but at the same time, that taking in native speaker material that you're trying to come to grips with, come to terms with, and understand is actually so much faster than a lot of other language learning methods like studying grammar and stuff like that. So don't worry too much about subtitles. But opensubtitles.org would be your first stop. Other than that, I don't know. I don't really worry about it. Also, this is not what you asked, I know, but audiobooks with the accompanying book are like basically about 10 series worth of subtitles for audio, because you've got the book and you've got exactly what it says. I mean, sometimes there's tiny differences, but normally it's exactly the same. And in a book, there's going to be more words than in 10 whole series of something. Okay, Joanne, I'll get to your question in a bit. If I forget about it later, just remind me. Although Mario here has asked a similar thing, this is in my predetermined. I'm just going to move these over here. That's not going well. Sorry, guys. Okay, Mario asks, hey, I've been learning Swedish on and off for about a year, and I have the feeling that I've reached the intermediate stage and I feel stuck. Any tips on how to overcome the intermediate plateau? Question 2, and I'm going to ask them together because they're kind of related. What do you think about SRS with Anki? SRS, for those who don't know, is a spaced repetition system for learning vocabulary. I tried it for a while. It's not my thing. I can't imagine myself sitting in front of a computer reviewing and spending time to create new cards and decks. It's just boring for me. Okay, if you've been learning Swedish on and off for about a year, on and off, I don't know, and you feel you've reached the intermediate plateau, I've got bad news for you. If you probably have reached some kind of plateau, but it's a long plateau. Like, I don't doubt your language learning ability, but if it's been on and off for a year, you're still at a pretty early stage. I can say that that's where I was about 2 years ago. Even if we learn at different rates, I would have been there at least 1 year ago. Um, and it's a very long plateau. I would still consider myself intermediate. So, it, having said that, it's not actually a plateau. Okay, you can rethink how, like, change how you're thinking about it. You're thinking you're not learning as fast as you used to, and therefore it's a plateau. The truth is, if you keep doing engaging things, you're actually learning faster than you used to when you first started. It's just that there's so much more to learn. So I like to picture it, and I'll just make sure this is in shot here. I like to picture it like a funnel, right? But sort of a reverse funnel, like a pyramid on its head. At the start, you're learning like, hello, how are you? I'm good, thanks. How's the weather? You're learning like such narrow things. There's only a few things that could ever be in the most basic material, kind of A1 stuff. As you go up, there's a few things in here that can be in the A2 material, and you'll find that some books don't cover everything because it's not possible. Some book, I'm not saying you should use books. I'm just pointing out that a book that is at that level doesn't cover every single thing that should be in that level. Then you go up to B1, and there's lots of things you could say. There's like, you can go shopping, you can catch public transport, you can, do all this stuff, and it's like, I can think of 2 examples. You can do lots of different things, and there's no way something's going to cover all that stuff. But then it really, really goes out at like B2, and especially at C1, which is no longer the intermediate plateau. But it's not that you're learning more slowly. It's just that you have so much more to learn. So you look at it and think, oh, I've flattened out in my learning. But it's more that there's so many more words. And for your fluency to improve, if you've been speaking, assuming you've been speaking, I don't know, it requires so much more work. Because, for example, the other night, I was talking about this series I've been watching that is about, I tried to use the Swedish there, it is about like really complex things. My fluency wasn't good because I've never talked about those things before. On the other hand, I could just keep talking about the things I talk about a lot. My fluency is excellent then, but that doesn't improve. So it's not really a plateau. Okay, then we get to what do I think about SRS and Anki for learning? Okay, so I'm coming at this from an interesting angle because 2 months ago, I couldn't ever think that I would use Anki in particular. SRS, maybe Anki, no. I just couldn't stand the look of the thing. It looks horrible. I can't believe, especially I've got a 4K monitor and it's tiny on a thing and you have to change a few things. Matt versus Japan, when he did that video with me, he also spent some time with me, help like with the screen share, setting it up so that it didn't look so bad, and we increased all the font sizes and a bunch of things. And he's also got some mods on the Mass Immersion Approach website that like change how it works, that make it way better. Okay, so that's the first thing. Anki, like I think they call it vanilla Anki, which just means standard unmodified Anki, is horrible. And I can totally agree that you wouldn't want to use it. However, I've started using that and I've made it fun. How I've made it fun is not to think I have to put in a certain number of cards a day. I have to learn a certain number of cards a day. I only ever put in things that are interesting to me. So I watch YouTube videos. They say something in the YouTube video, and I'm like, I guess that means this. Or sometimes I just don't know, so I look it up. And these days I'm good enough that I know how to spell a word just by hearing it. Look it up, find what it means, put it in the SRS. And I'm doing this like, a couple of words per session of YouTube watching. So a couple of words per hour, a couple of phrases per hour maybe. Or I might stumble across something while I'm reading, do the same thing. And then when I come back to that in the SRS, I go, yep, that's good. I love that one. I love that I learned how to say that. And the reason that I'm motivated to do it is that I don't want to lose that thing. If I hear them say, like, you know, throwing a ball against a wall or something that has some like specific construction that I don't know, I'm too keen to remember that to just let it go. I know that I'm not going to watch another video that has that language in it soon enough that I'll remember it, so I have to use SRS. That's for me. I know lots of successful language learners who don't use an SRS. Ollie Richards doesn't use an SRS. Steve Kaufman doesn't use an SRS. Having said that, Steve obviously uses Link, and that's kind of got a built-in SRS. I just like the simplicity of Anki these days, but I do think you need to make it not terrible to look at and deal with. Okay, I'm going to go into some of the chat comments just before they get too far behind, and then I'll come back to any comments that I have, any questions that were not answered. Okay. Joanne, do you have recommendations for resources for Swedish learning? I'm assuming you're a beginner, Joanne, from Poland. Okay, hey to Poland. This is kind of hard for me because when I started learning Swedish, I used a lot of Duolingo. As you guys probably know, I don't like Duolingo anymore. It wasn't just that I changed, it was also that it changed, and it's not as good as it used to be. Don't think it was ever great, but it was better. I also spoke a lot on iTalki, like a lot. I wasted a lot of money actually just speaking repetitively and not really getting any better. However, I don't really have any like material specifically for learners. However, I really recommend a set of books called Lasse Meyer's Detective Bureau, so Lasse Meyer's Detective Agency, of Martin Widmark. So by Martin Widmark. They're kids' books. They're aimed at like 9 to 12-year-olds. And they have accompanying audio books. They cost a couple of US dollars each for both the book and the audio, so about maybe $6 or $7 total for the book, for audio plus book on ebook, and they're just really good. They're really engaging. They're actually quite good stories. I'm not going to sit here look those up. Lasse Meyer's, wait, I'll write it in the thing. Sorry, my Swedish accent's a bit off tonight because I'm trying to speak in English. Lasse Meyer's Detective Bureau of Martin Widmark. Give those a try, or give one of them a try first. They're going to be a bit hard, but I would encourage people to repetitively read stuff anyway. Assuming you're like a total beginner, they're going to be hard. But I listened to those a lot when I first got into Swedish, and just listened to them repetitively. And there were times I thought that I knew what was going on, and I didn't. And then I listened again, and I was like, oh, hang on, I see what's going on. So yeah, you just repetitive listening. I think I did a lot of things that I thought were not helping, that were just out of habit, that were actually helping me more than anything else. So I remember I had this novel. It's like a full adult's novel, right? Like a full book like this. But I had the audio of it, and I just had the first 8 chapters of it on repeat in my car for forever. Like I just listened to at least literally 60 to 70 times. I'm not even making that up. And I thought, this isn't doing anything because I'm just hearing the same stuff over and over again. But the vocabulary that like seeped into my brain through that was massive. So yeah, I encourage repetitive listening and repetitive reading of, if you have to go to children's material, use children's material if you can't find stuff that's directly aimed at language learners. But this is what all the people who know more about this than me say all the time. Just use native speaker material. I have some issues with that kind of logic, but if it's children's material, I think it's good. And the good thing about Lasamaya is it's not boring. It's not bad material either. Okay, I want to get to this question, which, oh, wait. Diane Zavaleta? Sorry, no, Diana. Sorry about that, Diane. How many hours do you need per day to learn a language? That depends on so many things. How are we going to are we trying to get to like the C levels, like very high? Are we talking Spanish from Italian or French from English, or are we talking Japanese from Danish? So are we talking big gap or very small gap? And then how quickly? Like, I believe that the more time you've got in the day to put into the language, the better, and that actually up to a point of about 6 hours in a day, more is actually more efficient. So that is that, let's say you spend 6 hours a day, it takes you a year. If you spend 1 hour a day, it will take you more than 6 years, because although just doing that maths, that's obviously quite a hard language, but I think it's more efficient to spend more time. But there's no answer to your question, really. If you could at least tell me what language you're learning and what languages you already know to a high level, that might help. Understand you. I don't think there's any other questions. Okay. This person asked me on Instagram, this was a really good question actually. What are your thoughts on knowing a language versus speaking a language? It seems like there is this big focus on speaking in the language learning community. Like, I speak X amount of languages. Personally, I speak 2 fluently and I use both each day. I know a third, and I can read and understand it, but not speak it or write it. To me, that is enough, as I only use it for content understanding. But do you think that it is imperative in language learning to always learn how to speak and write it? No, I think it's totally up to you, right? So my thoughts around this are a little bit hard to explain. They're not complicated, they're just hard to put into words. It's totally up to you, right? Whatever you want to do with the language is enough. And I was talking to a Swedish friend of mine the other night who said he knows like 7 languages, but he doesn't speak many of them. He only speaks 3 of them properly. Which is Swedish, English, and Spanish, I think. And he's just happy with that. He's just happy taking in content in the other languages that he knows. Personally, I like to speak them. I feel frustrated hearing people say stuff that I understand and not being able to say those same things, not being able to react to those things. That's just how I feel about my Swedish. I can understand most things in Swedish, most things, but I want to be able to replicate that. That's just me. I don't think it's required for everyone. If you're happy just listening and understanding, then you do that. However, I do think that sometimes this gets a little bit like the whole health thing, right? When someone's overweight and other people tell them that they are overweight and that they should be healthier, there's a bad reaction to that for obvious reasons, right? We say, like, you don't comment on people's weight, don't try and tell them that they should be healthier, whatever. However, the person who is overweight is then saying, by saying, don't talk to me about my weight, they're kind of then taking the responsibility fully onto themselves and saying, I'm the only one who needs to worry about my weight. And that's true. They are the only one who should worry about their weight. But that doesn't, like, some people therefore let themselves off the hook because they're like, you shouldn't worry about how I do my languages, or about how healthy I am. I should only worry about me. Don't you worry about me. Mind your own business. And sometimes I think people use that as an excuse not to just get better at whatever it is they're doing, whether it's, sport or a healthy weight or languages. So I guess I'd be kind of harsh and say, ask yourself, are you really happy just taking in content in that language, or do you just not want to do the really hard work that it is to build up your speaking ability? It's fine if you don't, but you may find that in your innermost thoughts, you kind of actually go, actually, it kind of annoys me that I can't speak that language. I might hear native speakers of it and I can't interact with them because my speaking ability is so low. And I find that very frustrating in French and Swedish. So that's why I put French aside to just focus on Swedish, because I was sick of kind of being okay at Swedish and I wanted to be good at it. That's just me. I hope that was clear on the whole, that little analogy there. Okay, next comments. Roy, I will get to your comment in a little bit. Hello, Cheery Blossoms. Oh yeah, okay. Daniel from Mexico on Instagram, he asked, I've been learning German for 2 months now, but I feel like I'm not doing the right things to learn efficiently. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think a beginner's language learning daily routine should look like? He means should look. Like the most important things to be doing on the day. I know that input is important, but apart from that, I'm pretty lost. It's a very confusing path at the beginning, isn't it? Yes, input, but particularly repetitive input. This is one big disadvantage that adults have when learning a language. Children have this advantage all over us. Repetitive input gets extremely, well, we think it's boring. However, in a new language that you don't understand, it can actually get really interesting. But we tend to think, I've listened to that, I've read that, I've watched that, I don't want to do it again. But it's going to help you more to do that again rather than to just move on. So yes, I would. Don't worry too much about your structure. I have said before, have I said about structure? No, I don't worry too much about structure. Worry more about your motivation and just the amount that you're doing. If you can try and do as much as possible and try and reward repetition with less repetition. So say, okay, I'll listen to this 5 times this week, but I'll also, after I've listened to that, let's say you the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, one of the fairy tales that I can't remember the name of. Let's say you listen to that every day this week, but after I listen to that on every day this week, I will also listen to something totally new. So you're getting one repetitive thing, one new thing. I can't really, I mean, asking me about structure, I'm kind of the wrong person because I had an extremely non-structured approach to both French and Swedish. So I just would I would focus on repetitive listening. So I'm getting a bit distracted by the comments. I would focus on repetitive listening and new listening. So this is basically, that's Steve Kaufman says this all the time. Mix in repetition and novelty, so new things. You just got to kind of bear it out. You can't, unless you take a course, there's really no way to have structure. And actually, you're probably learning a lot faster than you would in a course. 2 months, you're still very early days. Don't stress it. I hope that helps. I hope you weren't expecting something more than just don't stress it, because that's all I've really got. Yes, Ben Griffiths in the comments says, Link mini stories are great for repetitive listening. I've only just sort of started to come across to Link, and it's still taking me a little while. There's a bit of a story to it, but yeah, stuff like that. Even the Duolingo mini stories. Yeah, and you know how I normally feel about Duolingo, but I think that's not, what are they called? They're just called Duolingo stories. Okay, I want to answer this one. because I get asked it a lot, and I've never answered it in a video exactly. Why did I start learning Swedish? Oi, lots of comments. So why did I start learning Swedish? That is, I think I've never answered it in a video because I don't think it's that interesting. It's not that great a story, but 3.5 years ago, a Finnish woman that my wife had known like years and years and years before. In fact, hadn't really even known. She'd sort of become friends with her, but wasn't that close. And it was like years ago when they were teenagers. This Finnish woman shows up in Australia, in Sydney, says, I'm coming to your city, which is just near Sydney. Can I come and stay with you? And we're like, that's random. But at the time, I have always thought that European people were cool, or European things were cool. I've always been interested in European culture. And I was watching the series The Bridge at the time. For those of you who don't know, it's a Swedish-Danish series. And I was like, Finland, that sounds cool and relatively close to Sweden and Denmark. I guess she'll be interesting. And she came and stayed with us. And she stayed with us for a few days. And then she went to New Zealand for a couple of months. And then she came back and stayed with us for a few more days. And then she was getting on the train to Sydney Airport to go back to Finland for like forever, essentially. And she kind of went, well, I've stayed with you guys for a couple of days now. You'll have to come and stay with me in Helsinki. And my wife was like, oh yeah, maybe. And I was like, no, like, let's do it. Let's set a date. And we set a date a long time in the future, being 18 months. And just because if I've got 18 months before I'm going to go traveling, I'm going to try to learn a language to travel. And I sort of did a tiny little bit of research and went, well, Swedish seems like the one. If we're going to go to Denmark, Sweden, and Finland, Swedish seems like the most logical choice. And I started learning Swedish. But the thing is, I never took it seriously. I didn't think it was going to be a real thing in my life. But then I got really, really interested in the process of learning languages for real, because I learnt German at school, but that's not real. As you know, learning at school kind of sucks. So I got really interested in how one actually does this legitimately. And I got so much further in Swedish than I ever thought possible. Even in like the first 6 months, I was a lot better than I ever thought I'd be. And obviously now I'm way better than that. So that's how I started learning Swedish. So for the next people who ask, I'm just going to refer them to this timestamp on the video. And then French was, my dad speaks a bit of French. He was living in France at the time that I took that up, but I just sort of got bored of Swedish, and I kind of stumbled into learning French. There wasn't really any particular reason. I like both languages pretty much equally, and that's it. Okay, I might catch up with the comments a bit here. Agata, sorry if I mispronounced your name. You said you had wasted a lot of money on iTalki lessons and that it didn't get you too far. What exactly do you mean? Do you now have a better approach? Yeah, I do. More input. So back then I didn't know about the heavy, like the mass input theory, or the heavy input theory, or an input-based approach, or whatever, which is basically that your brain obtains language through hearing it repetitively and hearing it in different patterns and different permutations, and builds a sort of an understanding of how the language works. And that this can happen without you actually speaking. It's still required that you speak in order to get good at speaking, because the process of going from the brain to the mouth is slightly different to the opposite, or going to the ears to the brain. But the theory is basically that it's much quicker to get the brain's understanding of the language quite heavily built up before you start speaking. Now, I do have issues with this theory. It's not that I don't think the theory is right. It's that I think there's motivational issues there for humans. So I think anyone who just goes, yeah, I'm just going to go 2 years of Chinese input before I say a word, great sounding for theory, I don't think that person's actually going to succeed at doing that. So that's I never heard enough Swedish. So I'd had these conversations, but I'd only get very, very slowly better because I would have to make a mistake before being told how you actually say that. And even then, I would only be saying something that was like a Swedish approximation of something I was thinking in English. So I would like, I'm thinking, my house is big. And I would say something that's like, my house is big. But the Swedish teacher would be like, yep, I get what you mean. And they wouldn't say, like, we would be more likely to say this. When you have an input based approach, that is, when you read a lot, listen a lot, you hear that maybe they don't say my house is big. Now, that's a totally made up example. They could totally say my house is big, mitt hus är stort. But there are many other things, lots of things where they wouldn't say it the way we say it. And this is particularly big for languages like Japanese and Mandarin and such. They just don't say things the same way that English speakers say them. So it's quicker to make your mind understand the language first. That's basically what I would do differently. So I just figured that if I had an iTalki lesson every day for like 2 years, I'd become fluent. It's not the case. So yeah, luckily I didn't make myself completely broke. I think I find useful about Duolingo stories. Yeah, Duolingo stories. Rasmus, do you think making a text full of sentences with new words and then reading that text time to time can be a good substitute to us SRS? Yeah, I do. It sounds like an awesome substitute to SRS, but where would you get such a text? That's the only, because I don't think you should write the material, because then it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of mistakes in it, and it's not going to be native sounding. But I see what you mean. I've done this a bit. That's actually a little bit. Sometimes my videos in languages, particularly my one in French about learning languages at the same time, that's actually what that was about. I was trying to use a lot of words that I didn't know and therefore have to rehearse them enough to do in the video, to record in the video, that I would be able to, that I would learn them. And it worked. But I kind of combine the two things you're talking about. So if you watch, if anyone here has not seen Matt versus Japan's video on the role, it's called The Role of SRS, role ROLE, the role of SRS in language learning. That's an excellent video that explains what you're actually trying to do with SRS. You're not trying to learn new words, you're trying to remind your brain that they exist so that you then learn them when you hear them. I use link. Hi Lamont, I found out that reading so-called easy reader books that are a bit more advanced than my level, very effective. Yes. However, they are extremely hard to find, especially on common languages. What is your experience with this? Well, I mean, French is one of the most common languages for an English speaker, and even Swedish isn't that uncommon. I've never... easy reader. So you mean easy readers for native speakers, like that they use at kids' schools, I'm assuming? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I don't really have any experience with that, sorry. But I was talking about before, if you were a bit late, you might have missed me talking about Lasamaya's Detective Biro, which is native material in Swedish for 9 to 12-year-olds. And that is very effective at depending on your level. Ryan, have you studied pitch accent in Swedish? Studied, no. I knew it was a thing when, even from the very beginning when I got into Swedish. I didn't really worry about it because straight, even from the get-go, even from like day one, Swedes told me that my accent was pretty good. And I thought, well, if it's pretty good after like a week, then it should be really good after a number of years. Do I wish that I'd done a little bit more studying to pitch accent? Not really. The only reason that I wish I knew a little bit more about pitch accent, at least from a sort of technical academic perspective, is that I now can't talk about it with very much, like in very great depth because I don't know that much about it. I probably know more about Japanese pitch accent from watching Matt, actually. Um, I, this is going to sound massively like flexing, but guys, there are many things I can't do, and I can't do well. Live streaming is one of them. I studied music at uni. I was pretty much a specialist in listening. Like, it's kind of hard to describe how a music degree, at least in Australia, works, but there's a big component that is just listening and notating, that is writing the music for what you hear, and this can go very, very in depth. And even among the people at uni who do this, like who studied this, I was like one of the best. I wasn't the best, but I was one of the best out of like 80 to 90 students. So my listening, I'm going to say, is sharper than the average person's. So when we talk about pitch accent, or any accent really, even accents in my native language and in Australian English and stuff, I can hear very, very small differences that most people either can't hear or can't be bothered hearing, or whatever it is. In fact, it was news to me when I started learning Swedish that other people couldn't hear things that I could hear. I just figured people could hear things and couldn't be bothered. For example, when I hear Australians try and speak French and they say like, "Je parle français, c'est très bien le français," I just figured they're being massively lazy. The truth is, they think they're speaking French with a French accent. So I hear things that other people don't hear with as much ease. So Matt talks about, I refer to Matt a lot because he knows what he's talking about. So sorry if you don't like him or wanted to hear what I think about it. I just basically think what Matt thinks. But he says that you have to train your ear to hear differences that it didn't hear before. That's true, but I didn't have to do very much of that. I can hear big differences in Swedish pitch accent that they're like, this one's hard for non-native speakers to hear, and they do it. And I'm like, is it? I find it very easy to hear that difference. However, I can't always replicate that because I'm not a vocalist, I'm not a singer. So I have some difficulty replicating it. But it's getting a lot better. Since I've started thinking about a good Swedish accent, it's getting a lot better. But no, I haven't. Native speakers. Yeah, so Radislav points out that's for the person, I can't remember who I was talking to, who said that, who asked me why I think it was a waste of money to use a lot of iTalki lessons. Yeah, native speakers, even iTalki teachers, don't necessarily correct you on everything because they understood your meaning, and that's sort of enough for them. Some teachers are better than others. It depends exactly what you want to do, but it's basically better to get some language under your belt first. Not all of it necessarily, but okay, me too. Yep. Bulgarian. Got a couple of Bulgarians here. Have you guys seen my review of that Bulgarian film? What's it called? It's called Glory in English. I think it's called Slava or something in Bulgarian. That was a really interesting film, actually. Okay. Ben, do you have any thoughts on the? I'm going to do these two from Ben, or this one from Ben, and then I'll get back to my things because I want to get through all the questions on my document. Do you have any thoughts on the idea that reading too early can be bad for you in terms of pronunciation? I hadn't heard that idea, but I can see what you mean, and I can see what the idea means. It's complicated, so it just took like a 10-minute pause there. I think that one of the biggest barriers when it comes to pronunciation, I just talked a whole lot about hearing and listening. I think another barrier is just not a very adaptable personality, if that's the right word. Like some people just can't get around the idea that, for example, a famous one is in German, ch is kind of a combination of k and sh, but it's not ch like in English, like in chips, right? Some people just can't get that into their head, or they don't want to, or something, and they say ich, the word for I, ich, and they say ich, and they will do that many, many times. Again, I don't really have that problem. If I get told that, like in Swedish, sj is generally, then I'm happy to say it's. So you have the word like for 7, hu. I don't. I think that a lot of people just they're just slow on uptaking like new ideas, I guess, or new. And so I think that for people, to answer your question, for people who have difficulty grasping that the pronunciation in this new language is different, then yes, reading in a language with an alphabet the same as theirs. So if there's a native English speaker in a language like German or French or Swedish, one of the Latin alphabet languages, then yes, reading may be bad. However, I always advocate for reading with the audiobook where it's possible anyway. So I don't do any, I'm going to say I don't do any reading without the audiobook. So I learned to pronounce a lot through there as well. But yes, actually, you guys don't know this yet, but I did an interview with Steve Kaufman that has been a nightmare technically to try and get up on my channel, because it has like, we had to use like 4 different pieces of footage. Basically, it's hard to explain, but it's been a nightmare trying to get the edit all together. So I've been working on it, and that's why it hasn't been on my channel. But that was like a week ago, I think. I did an interview with him, and at the end of it, we spoke Swedish. His Swedish is really good. It's better than mine in some ways, and mine's better in other ways. One thing that I did notice with him, or I think I might have noticed that in one of his Swedish speaking videos that he'd done earlier, and he reads a lot, especially in links, so not always with the audio, is certain sounds that he just pronounced like an English speaker would pronounce them. So the G sound in Swedish can have about 4 or 5 different sounds depending on the word, and he mostly just pronounced it like g, which it actually pretty rarely is in Swedish. So that's my thought. I think if the person's very adaptable, then it's fine. If they're not very adaptable, then they should only ever listen with audio. But I always listen with audio anyway. Okay, I'm going to get back to my thing, and then I'll try and catch up. I was at that Slavic name that I'm not going to try and pronounce. That's where we were up to. All right. Someone asked, this is kind of good, cool one. Any tips on sneakily adding immersion into your daily life? I see that you, meaning me, have got YouTube in Swedish, but besides switching languages on software and anything else that is your go-to immersion tactic? Short answer, no. I don't try and sneak Swedish in anywhere, really. When I started setting stuff in Swedish, I'll just get straight to the point. These days, I have everything set in Swedish. The only stuff that I don't have set in Swedish is stuff that just straight up doesn't have that as an option. It's one of the languages, like iTalki, which really annoys me. And my phone, I got a new phone like very recently. Can't put the phone in Swedish. You can put the keyboard in Swedish, but not the actual phone. So that's annoying. Everything else is in Swedish. I'm just going to take you guys through a quick list, because actually once you build it up, it's kind of insane. So YouTube, which includes the YouTube Studio, which is crazy complicated because there's like all these data and stuff. Windows, if you're on a PC, I'm guessing you can do it on a Mac as well. This is like a big one because those little like sort of inspirational pictures and stuff at the start when you log in, the text accompanying them, that comes up in Swedish. What I've started doing is writing that text in my diary every day, just writing whatever it says. Skype, Facebook, Instagram. I don't use Facebook very much, but if you've sent me a message on Facebook, sorry, I haven't replied. I just haven't been on it. Gmail and Google, which is a bit of an all-encompassing one because a lot of websites use your Google data to determine what language to display in. So if Swedish is an option, often you'll actually see, or this is whatever your target language is, you'll see that language displayed. So things like Wikipedia, I think, which I also have set in Swedish, or I always use the Swedish article in it. My keyboard is in the Swedish configuration, like it's the same keyboard, but I've got it set in Swedish on the computer. So I had to relearn all the like punctuation, especially when I'm typing in English, because it all moves around to allow for the 3 extra letters. My browser, which is Firefox, I'm sure you can do it in Chrome as well. Basically any website that will allow it, all online shopping. One of my affiliate link companies that I use is actually a Swedish company, and you can have your dashboard set in anything, but I've got it set in Swedish. This is crazy hard, right? Because like you're doing stuff that actually matters, like trying to make yourself some money, and you can't freaking work out what it's saying because it's in Swedish. So this forces me to just go, I'm just going to have to learn that word. And I've got like a pretty good running watch, and I've got that set in Swedish as well, which is good because normally I run with audio on Swedish audio, obviously. And so that just keeps me in that zone when I look at, and instead of saying warm up, it says uppvärmning. So just, and like I said, I can't do my phone. The reason I have all this stuff, I'm not just telling you this to flex. The reason I put all this stuff in Swedish is I tried a bit of it, but like I tried just a few things, and I tried my computer one day and I went, oh no, my computer's too hard, and I set it back to English. But then I realized that if it's too hard, it's because my Swedish isn't good enough, right? I'm expecting to try and sneak it into my life, like you say, just like, oh, I'll just see a couple of Swedish words every now and then. And then you realize that there's all these words that you don't know, and that they're not like a minor thing. You need to know what that says. So you need to learn it. So I'm adding it into Anki. You could write it in a list, whatever you want to do. Learn those words until you're seeing them so much. And the thing that's cool about this is it's like a natural SRS, because I see the date on my computer, which is also in Swedish form because it's my computer set in Swedish, like den 22 juni 2020. I see stuff like that. I see words all the time. That was a long way of making that point. The more stuff you have set, the more effective it is. And I feel like it's sort of doubly effective with every thing. So if you just set, let's say, Gmail in Swedish or in whatever your target language, that might not make that big a difference. But then you set another thing that helps more, and another thing, and that doubles it up until there's actually quite a lot. But I don't think you're really sneaking it in. Because you have to learn the words. After you've learned them, then it's sneaking it in. But no, that's about it. Okay, I'll get back to the comments in a sec. The chat, sorry. Sorry, that frown was just like, because this one's hard. How or where can you watch movies / TV shows series from another country, aka your target language? Netflix doesn't allow VPNs. That's true. They've cracked down on that. And if it does, there's not that many different language subtitle options for everything that you want to watch. I have a really good local library, so that's how I've gotten a lot of my stuff. They have tons of stuff in lots of languages, including like Icelandic stuff. But most people live near a library, I think. The library is a better resource than you think it is my point. Consider a different service if that there are some, like everyone just assumes Netflix, but there are some like more specialty kind of services that have more foreign material. Even like, if you don't know of any others, there's SBS On Demand. which is an Australian service. If you use a VPN set to Australia, it won't know any better. There are ads on it, and they're Australian ads, so they'll be really annoying. They're really annoying for us too, but they have a lot of foreign stuff, so that's really good, and it's totally free. Actually, it's not doesn't cost money. That's what free means. Even this one sounds weird to people in 2020, but even secondhand DVDs, because like I say, I encourage repetitive watching. You can buy like secondhand Blu-rays for $1 these days. So that if you see that it's got your language, like some movies just have tons and tons of languages, like 20 on there. I don't know what your target language is, but if you think you might be mildly interested in that movie and it's got your language, then spend $1 on it. And then there are, how shall we say, less than entirely above board options. I don't encourage that practice, but there is somewhat of a gray area when it comes to language learning, because it's somewhat educational, I guess, and it depends exactly kind of how you're using that. But I mentioned before opensubtitles.org if you're looking for subtitles, but if you're looking for actual material, then the stuff I said before. What to do? Okay, this person emailed me. Hello, my name is Alexa. I've been watching your videos for a few months. I'm a native speaker of Serbian. Shout out to the Serbians. You guys make awesome French teachers. But I also speak English as my native language. 3 months ago, I started learning Spanish. I have started with Rosetta Stone. I have all 5 levels and have finished 2.5 levels. I found Rosetta Stone a bit boring, so I tried Duolingo. Probably wasn't the solution for that. I learned so little compared to Rosetta Stone. With that, my vocab was almost the same. With programs, I have been practicing translating text into Spanish. I want to ask you, what way of learning Spanish do you recommend? I'm planning on dedicating about an hour a day for learning Spanish. Hopefully by now you guys know what I'm going to say. Immersing in native material, basically. Use kids' material if you have to. If you're only up to level 2.5 in Rosetta Stone, you're probably not going to have that big a vocabulary. Adults' material is going to be hard. But if you speak 2 languages already, which you do, I think you'll be fine with kids' material, repetitive listening, all the stuff I've talked about already. Just raise your tolerance for ambiguity. So that is, when you don't understand something, it's okay. Just keep going. YouTube videos. I mean, Spanish, there's so much stuff, right? YouTube videos for kids, kids' cartoons, books for kids, or for adults. If you find some YouTuber who maybe has a lot of kind of visuals, so does reviews of things, or where you can easily get what they're talking about. With Spanish, there's almost as much material as there is for English. Just dig into it. Keep it. Sometimes you've got to push through for a few weeks to find stuff that you like, because you get something and you're like, this will be good, and then you realize it's really boring. Just find something you like in Spanish. I think you'll be able to understand. Normally, I don't like that argument of just find something you like, because something you like isn't going to be enjoyable if you can't understand it. But because you already speak some Spanish, I think you'll be fine. Just find something that you can enjoy otherwise, even if it's just a vlog with really cool visuals, and so you're at least entertained that way. That's basically what I would do. Thanks for your question, Alexa. Okay, that is it for the questions I had in my document, so now I can just focus on the chat. Okay, if you're learning French, it may be bad, but okay, we're going back to Bonsoir, Lamont. I was wondering what your thoughts on Rocket Languages. Interesting. Is it worth purchasing any of the levels? I just started using Busuu after seeing your reviews. Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. This is a little bit tricky because you mentioned Rocket and Busuu, both of which are very near to my heart. I think Rocket is excellent. I think the way they structure it is fantastic. It's such a, if you guys don't know what Rocket Languages is, it's more of like a, before this kind of online thing. I mean, they have online systems, but it's where you just buy the levels outright. So you buy level 1, level 2, level 3. They don't have heaps of languages, but the way they structure it so that you're repetitively hearing things but in different contexts, I think is very clever. I remember I did Rocket German for a little while and I really enjoyed it. And I did some Rocket French as well. I never paid for any of them. There's certain amounts that you can get for free. If you think that it's worth it and you are really enjoying it and you want to know what happens next in the story and everything, I think it's good. It is pretty expensive, but long term, it's probably not that much compared to what you'll spend on language learning as an overall thing once you start getting good and you want to buy material and you want iTalki lessons and whatnot. So long term, it's not that much. I've spent way more than that on Swedish. Rocket, of course, doesn't have Swedish, but I like Rocket. Busu, you've just started using. Okay, I've been meaning to do a video on this, but it's a little bit complicated. I've updated my thoughts around Busu. That review was a bit premature of me. It was a whole year ago, but it feels like longer. Because I hadn't tested every language. I'd only tested like 2 languages. And I've had a lot of people complain to me that the Russian is terrible, the Japanese is terrible. I thought the Chinese was okay. I only did it for like a day, but I thought it was fine. And the other thing is I've more moved to like the kind of mass input theory as opposed to doing a Busu where it's like structured. I still think Busu is really good for certain levels and for certain students who want to do certain things, but I've basically come to the point where if beginning a new language, I wouldn't use Busu again. I've moved on as a learner, and I also like some of the languages that I didn't test were no good. I did test it for Arabic when I learned Arabic for a month last year, and yeah, it was terrible for Arabic. I'm assuming you're learning French, Jennifer. I found Busu French fine. Is Rocket more helpful? I think Busu is probably a little bit more helpful overall than Rocket, but Rocket is really good. Rasmus Match mentioned that reading too early can ruin pronunciation and even more the hearing as well, because the brain is going to become good at picking up from the context instead of hearing correctly. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to see exactly how he says that. Also, like, surely reading in Japanese or Chinese is going to be a totally different thing because you can't get how to pronounce that anyway. And Matt admits that he knows nothing about learning European languages because he's never done it. How proficient were you when you changed the language of your systems? Thanks, Eric. Pretty. I only did it like quite recently. You don't have to. It depends what it is. You don't have to be really proficient if you're only changing something that doesn't really matter, like Instagram or whatever, and you can see. You can obviously see what's happening. You can always set it back, but sometimes, like, I try to resist doing that. But I didn't know the words. If that's actually your question, which it probably was, I didn't know the words for, like, there's so many words, and that's why I changed them, because sure, I know lots of words in Swedish, but I don't know the words for, like, connection established in Skype, or like poor connection, or and it's like I know words for connection, but that's not the ones that are used in digital terms. And what are some other, like there's one, I haven't learned this one yet, but there's one when I go to shut my computer down that's like I'm not going to try just in case I accidentally do. It's the sleep mode of the computer, and it's like strömsparsläge or something. It's like really strange. You don't have to be good, but you have to be prepared for it to kind of be a bit uncomfortable. But I was pretty good, but it didn't really make that much difference. I asked you that. Oh, yes, that you're Alexa. That makes sense. That looks like a Serbian name. Have you ever tried Bluebird languages? No, I haven't. Never heard of it. Oh, someone emailed me about it, I think, but I've never tried it. I got to know it from an interview with Seabolt Speaks. It seems kind of like Pimsleur. Yeah, people ask me about Pimsleur a lot. There are ones on my shelf if you can't see it, but I haven't reviewed them yet. I think I will though, because it sounds like that a lot of people are keen to get. Do you think immersion at the beginning is a productive thing for highly inflectional languages like Finnish, or am I better off spending some time studying the grammar? Good question, Ryan. I think a little bit of both. I don't. I actually think that the more complex a language's grammar is, like Finnish, the less you should study its grammar, because you're never ever going to remember all the rules about cases and everything. Finnish speakers don't know them either. Um, I think when languages have extremely simple grammar, then it's better for just someone just to say, it's always like this. And you're like, oh, okay, it's always like that. So I never have to worry about it. But in Finnish, it's so complicated that you're never going to understand why it's like that. So I think like go and get a little bit of input, be completely confused, then go and read something and find out like one thing that then when you go back to your input, you're like, I see. They do have that dative case every second sentence or whatever the crazy rules about Finnish are. Um, and then like do some more input knowing that, and you'll pick up on that, just that thing. Maybe like even do it for a week, right? Go back to a week being a long time, by the way. Go back to learn another rule, come back to input for a week, another rule, come back to input for a week. Don't try and learn all the rules at once. Don't try and do all your input at once. That's I've never studied something with grammar as hard as Finnish, but okay. Ballistic bro, I am sorry for the Busu recommendation if it's not good for Japanese. It's the thing is like the things I said in that review I agreed with then, and I still mostly agree with now, but I still think it's like a better program than most of the other programs. But I should have done some more research um, into what they had for other languages and whether they were the same, because French is similar enough to English that it could work the way it does. But at the same time, I made that review with like 290 subscribers. I never thought anyone would see it, to be honest. I think that video now has like 55,000 views or something. If I'd known it was going to have that many views, then I'd have done it more properly. But there you go. That's lessons learned. Uh, Sorting them is a nightmare. Here's where I was. Okay. Don't know how to add cards to Anki. It is a bit weird. Hang on, let me check. Okay, I've got Anki in front of me. So you click on the deck that you're adding to. So the deck is like a really the deck is like, I only ever use one deck at a time, but and then you click add or A up the top. That's about, yeah, that's how you add stuff to Anki. But really, definitely, if you're interested in using Anki and you can't get into it, watch some of Matt's videos for the various. So I think it's called Low Key Anki. Yeah, I think he's got one called Low Key Anki. That makes a big change, which is to sorry, I got distracted there. That makes a big change, which is to take away 4 options and just has 2 options, which is just either you know it or you didn't, which is much more efficient. And Pierre, I'm thankful that you said you're using Busuu for Russian, and it's not the best, but it's better than what you were using before, because a lot of people gave me a lot of grief about that it was so bad for Russian. So, Duolingo is worse for Busuu than, yeah. I mean, Duolingo being worse isn't really a defense for Busuu, because Duolingo is free while Busuu is not, which people are very quick to point out to me. Fiatrono, you'll go to Clav any time soon with another YouTuber? I'm assuming you mean collab. Am I going to collab anytime with another YouTuber? Well, it's not technically a collab, but like I said, I did an interview with Steve Kaufman that I just haven't got on his haven't got uploaded to my channel yet. It's not technically a collab because it's just him on my channel. I'm not on his channel. Um, I will do it at some point, but I have certain goals about particular channels that I want to collab with, and the kinds of collabs that I want to do. I don't want to just do collabs for the sake of doing them, which is exactly what I did with my first one ever with Tom and Nita. I was just doing it for the sake of doing it, but that one's really fun. If you guys didn't watch that, the one on her audio is a bit weird on her video, on her half of the video, but the one it's called like Australia versus Switzerland or something. Small YouTuber named Anita is her real name, and we asked each other questions about Australia and Switzerland. That one's actually a really fun video. Ryan says, as someone who is C1 in Russian, I really recommend just reading books. It'll be a pain, but you'll learn so many words, and the more you know, it's easy to remember new words. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, Ryan, people are motivated very differently, and I agree with you, but I've come to learn that what I sometimes think is not that big a deal. So I'm sitting on my hands because it's actually quite cold. I've come to learn that what I think is not that big a deal, like just read books. For some people, that's so difficult, and just their tolerance for pain, basically, or mental pain, mental exhaustion, is way lower than mine. I always figured that mine was low because I was super lazy at school and at university, but actually when I'm really motivated to do something like learn Swedish, my tolerance for that stuff is really high. So I think you need to ease people into that, as in, if let's say I'm trying to encourage someone to learn a language, it's difficult for them if I just say, oh, you should just read a book, especially in Russian, like maybe in French, but so that's kind of what I want to do more videos about. I did a couple last year about like motivating yourself, because like Matt said in my interview with him, it's no good knowing the perfect system to learn a language if you can't implement that, if you can't actually get yourself to do it. Okay, guys, if you want to keep asking questions, feel free. Otherwise, I might wrap it up because I don't want to just waste people's time. But if you have more questions, then feel free to ask them, and I'll keep going, because I had to sleep earlier. It's 1 a.m. here in Australia, but I had to sleep, so I'm probably not going to sleep for a while now. I've been learning Swedish on and off for about a year, and I feel stuck. Did you? I think I answered your question before, Mario. I did answer your question before, right at the beginning of the. You'll have to go back to the beginning, man, because I answered it like maybe 10 minutes in. Let's see if I missed any in the comments here. Also, guys, while I should have said this at the beginning, but I was just keen to get straight into questions. Thank you for coming over to this channel to do this. I know it's a pain going over to a second channel. I totally understand if you don't stay subscribed, or if you I totally sorry, I keep reading comments just stopping halfway through. I totally understand if you don't stay subscribed to this channel, if you don't want to watch the reviews. That's totally fine. But thank you for coming over. What's going on is I need the watch time on this channel in order to get it monetized. Shh. I don't know if YouTube really allow that. I'm sure they won't watch this far through. Because what happened with my normal channel, Days of French and Swedish, it crossed the threshold for getting monetized in November, and they sent me an email saying, like, you've crossed the threshold. It'll be a matter of weeks now before we say yes or no to you being monetized, because they manually review every channel. And I was like, sweet. It was mid-March before they actually approved the channel. Like, even if they'd said no, they could have said that 5 months ago. And that kind of, I mean, it didn't really annoy me. Like, you can't really complain about things being unfair when you're on a free platform and living in like a rich Western country and stuff. But then my friend, he crossed 1,000 subscribers and the appropriate view time a month later, and he got monetized in 3 days. I was like, what? So I don't know what's going on with how fast they monetize channels or whatnot, but I'm thinking that at the moment they've basically employed more people to be looking at channels to manually monetize them or not. And I don't think that'll last forever. And I think if this channel takes too long to cross the threshold, we'll have another 5 to 6 month scenario, and I don't want that to happen. So during these times when everyone is at home, I'm trying to get the channel to the 4,000 hours of watch time that it needs. Still a way off, but this just helps me out. 30 people watching for an hour and a half. I will watch your review of that Bulgarian film. I haven't seen it myself, but I might check it out. Yeah, it's I was blown away because I don't really know anything about Bulgaria, but it's a pretty good film. But also, just know if you're here going like, what's the go with the reviews? It's a second channel, so maybe I don't put as much work in or anything. The reviews take me just as long as the language. Maybe not just as long, because writing them is easier. It's easier to talk about like one movie or whatever for 10 minutes than it is to have all these language learning ideas and form them into one video. So they don't take me just as long, but I work just as hard on them, and I have to watch the material first. So the videos on this channel on the whole are just as high a quality as on Days of French and Swedish. So if you plan to stream more often, Rasmus, I definitely don't plan to stream more often. It's actually a massive pain. Or at least I could get better at it to the point where I don't have to spend like, I don't have to spend 2 hours setting my microphone up so that it works. But that's what I had to do today, because I think I need to start using a proper streaming service. But at the moment, it's so easy without using, like, when I say a streaming service, sorry, I mean the like one of those things that like you set everything up and then it goes to YouTube, as opposed to just doing it from YouTube like I am now, which was what gave me the problem with the mic. Although, I don't know, hey guys, tell me, is the sound good, or is it just there? Like, does it sound like I'm in a bathroom, or does it sound actually, does it sound like somewhat like a professional studio? Because I just realized that I may have actually forgotten to set the correct microphone on Skype, on YouTube, and that's going to be really annoying. If the sound has been rubbish the whole time, I'm very sorry. I meant for this microphone here to be my yeah, but is it rich sound? Does it sound like a microphone like this, or does it sound like it's going through the webcam? Because I can't hear it. Because last time I did it through the webcam because I just couldn't be bothered doing it properly, and it sound is good. Thank you. Good. Thank you. The difference between the webcam and the mic is like it's not chalk and cheese. It's like something else. Okay, good. Thank you, Pia. That's good. Whew. I would have been so annoyed at myself. And what was I going to say about the whole second channel? So that's what's going on with the second channel, and that's why I wanted you to go over here, to come over here. Thank you, everyone, saying it's my mic. Whew, that's a relief. That would have been so annoying to me if I'd spent 2 hours setting that up. I was going to say about Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram if you like, and when I remember, I post stuff about what I'm actually doing in language learning and not just like ads for the channel and stuff like that. I haven't done it for a while though, actually. But I try to use Instagram as a thing of like, today I read this book or whatever. And also, in theory, I should get some good photos up on there one day because I am actually a photographer. Um, people like making their own little ballistic pro. Can I find you on Hello Talk? What do you guys think of Hello Talk? Because with my new phone, I finally have room for Hello Talk. My old phone didn't have enough room for it, and I don't know that it's cracked up to be. Oh, sorry, the mic. I probably just stuffed around the cable a bit. Hopefully, it's better now. If you guys don't have any more questions, I would love to just sit here chatting, but I think that's pretty disrespectful of everyone's time because I'm sure you've got better things to do than just listen to me rambling on about whatever comes to mind. Have you been to any Swedish French language exchange meetups? If so, did you find them useful? Exchange meetup. Okay, what I've done is, I don't know exactly what you mean, but what I've done is to go to, there's a Swedish church and cafe in Sydney. They're like next to each other and they're sort of aligned, like the same people run them. And I've been to that many times, and through that I found there's a group called Swedish Australian Young Professionals, which is sort of like this networking group, and it's a bit businessy and a bit boring, but there are Swedes there, and at their parties they drink a lot and they speak Swedish. Technically, it's against the rules to speak Swedish because they're trying not to make people feel left out. But once you get enough alcohol in them, they stop caring. So they're not exchange groups; they're like Swedish groups. I've been to those, and I do find them helpful. And French, no, I was a member like of an email list for a French exchange group, also in Sydney, and I just never got along to it. It just was always at times that I couldn't do. And then there was a thing in my city, Wollongong, which is an hour and a half away from Sydney, which it was just a general kind of language meeting / exchange. I actually found those pretty good. Not so much useful, but just good, just fun. I spoke all three languages at various times. And I've taught people Swedish. I've helped people with Swedish. I spoke to Norwegian people in Swedish. But exchange things, no. There is one at my local university, but I don't like language exchange in general. Plus, it seems you're talking about Hello Talk. Man, yeah, you could have an app for trading computer program data and you will get people trying to date on there. That's just, yeah, I've had iTalki, a lot of iTalki teachers, particularly females, tell me that they had so many people trying to use iTalki like Tinder. Yeah, I just don't really get what you're supposed to do on Hello Talk. Like, at least for my level of Swedish, it doesn't really seem like it's worth it. I'm not going to try and pronounce your name, the French-speaking name, because I don't want to. My French takes a little while to warm up before it sounds like it's French. Will there be a video about the learning language full-time for a week? There will be a video. This is easily my most ambitious script to date. So I haven't started actually shooting the video yet, but I've scripted it with to a level that I've never scripted a video before. It might not come out well, but I'm very keen to make the best video I can. So there's definitely going to be a video, and that's why it's taking a long time. So I haven't even filmed it yet. It's probably a week away, to be honest, at least. And that's if I film it all. It's more than a week away. The thing is, filming, all the setup for filming and everything takes a long time. So I generally try not to film just one video at once. So I generally try and have like 3 or 4 scripts ready, which is why, if you've never noticed this, you guys have probably never noticed this, I'm sure no one's paying that much attention to me. but you'll see like I'll have one haircut for a bunch of videos, and then suddenly quite a very different, like a lot longer, or it's been cut and it's a lot shorter, because they're actually filmed like a month apart. Why do you think? Is that to me? Oh, Michelle, Michelle, Michaela. Is that to me? Why do you think high school language classes aren't particularly useful? Okay, I don't. It's just that the environment is completely not suited to learning languages. So, like, if you take like the idea of focus, I think you need to be focused to learn a language, at least for a lot of the time. You don't have to be focused 100% of the time, but you, when you're learning, there needs to be some time of focus. School is like the least focused place ever. You've got your friends around you. You're a teenager. You've got other things on your mind. They're not, and you don't care. Like almost by definition, everything at school is like boring to you. You don't like school, even if you do like it. So I just like my German teacher was actually really good. A lot of people have commented in that video that I did about Nathaniel Drew that they're like, why'd your German teacher kick you out? That was so harsh and stuff. That wasn't the whole story. I was a horrible student, and eventually she was just like, this is so pointless. Why do you even come? She was actually a really good teacher, and German was one of my favorite classes. So much so that it wasn't it wasn't a good environment for learning, because I just had like a great time there. I didn't try and learn German, and the more that happened, the worse it got, because I was further and further behind the class, and I was with this one other student who was also behind the class. We were the bottom two students because we just stuffed around together, and all my favorite people and my favorite teacher were all in that class. My head was not in a space for learning. And I generally think that that's the way that schools do it. People complain about them being boring. That wasn't so much the case for me. It's just that I wasn't mentally there to learn a language. I probably thought that by going to German class, I was learning German, but of course I wasn't. I need to be mentally there. And I think that it's the same story with most high schools. Having said that, I do think high schools get a bad rap, because I think it's really the student's fault, and it's just an age that is going to be hard to teach languages. For example, that Finnish girl that I said before, if you guys have been here long enough to hear the story of how I came to start learning Swedish, the Finnish girl, she said that she learned Swedish at school, and that there's just an expected attitude in Finland that you have to hate Swedish. Like, you just don't like Swedish. That's not a thing. And she liked Swedish because she liked her teacher, and she got a bit better at it than everyone else, and she ended up going on to speak Swedish for a job and stuff like that. But there's this almost like this presupposition that you're going to hate Swedish by studying it, and that's just the worst place for languages to start off in someone's life. So that's how I feel about languages in school. That's why I think they're not that useful. Any tips on learning grammar? I'm learning German. It's my weakest area. Is it just a case of memorization? No, it's not. It's a case of repetition in different contexts. So don't try and memorize grammar. Try and repeat input. Try and get repeated input so that you see that it's always like this, or that it's always like this, or that these are the exceptions, or whatever. If you haven't watched the rest of the stream, I've spoken a little bit in the stream about how it's good to get a lot of input and repeated input. Yes, thank you, Rasmus. The idea of learning a language 2 to 3 hours per week is ridiculous. So it's not even about school. It's about what the learner is willing to do outside the classes. Yeah, and then they're trying to learn everything else as well. Like, you've got, and then often languages are considered, at least in Australia, languages are considered like the subjects that you don't really need to do well in. You need to do well in English and maths, or maybe science if you take one of the sciences. But I mean, it doesn't make any difference. Whichever subjects you do well in, they all contribute to your marks. But imagine, like, trying to learn German, for example, at the same time as trying to learn um, calculus and study some texts in English and learn about relativity in physics and what was my other subject? Music. I did 3 unit music. Did I? I don't know. And trying to learn like music and stuff all at the same time as trying to learn a language. You're not learning that language properly. That's just not like really. You would, if you were trying to learn it properly, that's like all you would be doing basically. Yeah. I'm currently finishing up a German course in Memrise, and wow, I hate German grammar. Yeah, German grammar, I don't like. I would still take German over if I had to. If I had the choice and I had to learn a language quickly, I would still take German um, over like many other languages. Like, yeah, German grammar. I think the reason that German grammar seems harder than it really is, he says, having not studied German very hard, um, is that the vocab is so similar that it seems to English that it seems like um, it seems like you should be able to understand it. And then this crazy grammar that is totally doesn't resemble our grammar comes along and goes, hello, and you're like, what? Um, I think that's why German grammar seems harder than it really is. Um, whereas in Finnish, you're like, everything is so bizarre that it's not surprising that the grammar is also bizarre. I guess that's what it is. Um, anyway, guys, I can see the numbers dropping off a little bit. I think people have rightly realized that I'm just kind of rambling now. And I'm going to say thank you all very much for watching this. And yeah, if you're interested in reviews of foreign language that is non-English language TV shows and movies, hang around and watch some other videos. Whoever just turned up, I'm sorry, I'm about to bow out, but thanks heaps for watching, guys, and I will see you all soon. Bye bye.